Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for registering for the CHSA Accredited Distributor Scheme webinar. Just to give you just an overview and the objective of this presentation, this is to hopefully just for you to be able to understand as an accredited distributor member of the CHSA, your commitment and obligations as a member of the scheme when purchasing and supplying products into the away from home markets. Please, if you have any questions, please pop them into the chat. We have an amazing panel of representatives from our accredited manufacturing scheme members, so there will be plenty of time afterwards for questions. So please note any questions in the chat. And if you can, just highlight them if it's for a particular scheme manufacturer. So next slide, please, Kathy. Okay, so an introduction, just to remind everyone, as I'm sure you're all aware, the CHSA represents the major manufacturers and distributors supplying cleaning and hygiene products in the UK. We are a UK organisation. Manufacturing members include multinationals with a global footprint, as well as major UK-based independent manufacturers. Distributor members span national networks to privately owned independent businesses. Next, please. So the committed to the standards are accreditation schemes, and this is a foundation of the Cleaning and Hygiene Suppliers Association. Our commitment to standards began in 1997 with the launch of the first accreditation scheme. Today, the CHSA operates schemes for manufacturers of soft tissue, plastic sacks, cotton mops, and cleaning chemicals, and obviously yourselves, distributors of cleaning and hygiene products. So the foundations of our confidence into the market, we are committed to standards, and one of which is a very important one, and that is our code of practice. Every member has signed our code of practice, which demands members must trade ethically and includes also the embedding of the Competition and Markets Authority's Green Claims Code. Amongst other stipulations, it does require members to conduct business in an open, honest, fair, and proper manner, ensuring all public statements are decent, honest, and truthful, and ensuring no false or exaggerated claims related to products or services are made. Also, hold and provide evidence on request for product and service claims. Next slide, please. We also have, and this is newly introduced last year, was committed to standards. Again, our ethical marketing commitment. Every member has signed the ethical marketing commitment, which states all statements and claims are truthful. Supporting evidence is available on request to substantiate all product and service claims. And this is particularly important when it comes to validating any product or service claims during an independent audit. All statements and claims must be transparent and they must be meaningful. So accredited distributors, this is your commitment. Where product falls within the scope of a CHSA Accredited Manufacturing Scheme, so that is soft tissue, plastic sacks, cotton mops, or chemical, you must offer for sale only product from the CHSA Accredited Manufacturers or product that conforms to the standard of the relevant CHSA accreditation scheme. You also guarantee cleaning and hygiene products not covered by a CHSA accreditation scheme for manufacturers must conform to the commitments within the CHSA's Code of Practice and the ethical marketing commitment, which I have just previously presented. So accredited distributors, your responsibility. So you're responsible for making sure the product that you are supplying or purchasing falls within the scope of CHSA accreditation scheme for manufacturers conforms to the technical regulations of that scheme if purchased from a non-accredited manufacturer. So you are able to purchase and supply products into the market from a non-accredited manufacturer, but you must be fully aware, and this is the basis of this webinar, to actually inform you and communicate what those technical regulations are. So in order to help, because there is a lot of information in the technical regulations, and I'm only just getting round to them, having been appointed last year in April as the scheme chair, there's a lot of technical information. So to make it easy for all new applicants and our existing members, we have devised a series of different checklists. And importantly, for the accredited distributor scheme, because of which you will obviously transcend across a number of the schemes within your product range. The checklist will cover general requirements, of which these are generic across all schemes, private label rules, of which some of you this will be applicable to, requirements of your soft tissue manufacturer, of your plastic sack, cotton mop, and your cleaning chemical manufacturer. And also importantly, the use of the certification mark. Sorry, but next, please. So we will now we have developed a comprehensive checklist of which the independent inspector, who is a third-party inspector, will audit any of our accredited distributor members utilising this checklist. So it is important that after this webinar, it is freely available on the CHSA website. I do stress that you actually familiarise yourself with it. And if there is anything that you require any further information on, please just either email me at schemechair@chsa.co.uk, or you have my number as well at the bottom of my email signature. So please, I'm more than happy to take up conversations if you are not sure about anything. So we're now going to unshare and take you through the checklist. Okay, so Kathy, just as I go through, I won't go through absolutely every piece of this because there is a lot of information. But I do again emphasize that it is your responsibility to familiarize yourself, particularly within the requirements of the other accredited manufacturing schemes with your products, please. So first of all, it covers a number of different sections, which I've previously just outlined. So if we go to section A, please. So section A is the general requirements of an accredited distributor. So where the distributor purchases, stock and supplies product from sources other than CHSA accredited manufacturing members, the products must conform to the same relevant manufacturing standard for those schemes. So if you're buying plastic sacks, or it's toilet or paper hygiene, or cotton mops or cleaning chemicals, then you must familiarize yourself with those technical regulations and those schemes' manufacturing standards to ensure that your supplier is conforming to those requirements. Members also must operate a control system, so results should be recorded and retained for 1 year. This is particularly relevant for those with who are supplying or buying mops and plastic sacks. Again, we will cover off those particular schemes. There are specific requirements in our accredited manufacturing schemes. Members must also appoint a nominated person responsible for ensuring compliance to the technical regulations. So they must be familiar with the technical regulations of the accredited distributor scheme and the technical regulations of the schemes for the product that falls within the scope of the CHSA manufacturing accredited scheme, but which is purchased from a non-accredited manufacturer or supplier. So you can purchase both from a accredited manufacturer and a non-accredited manufacturer within the CHSA scheme scope, but you must ensure that any non-accredited manufactured product or supplier conforms to the current CHSA manufacturer technical regulations and manufacturing standards. Members must also read and sign the ethical marketing commitment. So, and this covers anything from social media narrative to your websites as well. We also request, read and sign the CHSA's Code of Practice, which includes the CMA's Green Claims Code. If you could just scroll up, please. So this piece is probably quite important for a number of you, where private label. So we have a lot of inquiries from our distributor members regarding private label. Now, in order for private label, we do as an absolute minimum compliance requirement that the private label must have some form of identification of who the accredited CHSA manufacturer is who is making and supplying that product to you. And this forms the few numbers called the manufacturer's confidential numbers. Now, only the independent inspector will release these numbers, and only he is aware of these numbers. So this is not a number that is readily nor out there in the public domain, and it is confidential. Where a distributor sources private label, which is within the scope of a CHSA manufacturer, and the label and packaging are expected to include the relevant scheme certification mark. So if you are purchasing a private label product from one of our CHSA accredited manufacturers, then in line with the confidential number, we also expect, where it is possible, and I do reiterate this, it is dependent on space on the label or the carton, we do ask for that accredited manufacturer mark to be placed on that, but that is obviously dependent on space within the carton or the internal packaging, i.e. labelling. So we move on now to section C to provide some overview of the various manufacturing accredited scheme requirements. So if we take soft tissue, and here on the webinar, we have Joe Long representing the soft tissue scheme group from Metsa Surla. So again, please, if you have any questions, Joe, I know will be happy to speak to you about these. And I do again emphasize, please, as a distributor member, you are more than, I'm sure many of our manufacturer members would be more than happy to help and support and guide their our distributor members in ensuring that they are able and understand the relevant regulations and compliance and the placement of certification marks. Again, there are a number of pieces. So we have within this provide copies of their own quality checks with each delivery for each product supplied, comply with ISO 9001, or hold an alternative quality certification. The inspector, and this is very important, the inspector will utilize this checklist to actually plan and prepare his audit for when undertaking an audit with one of our accredited distributors. So again, it is important to the person who is appointed, who is facilitating and preparing for the inspector and the audit, to ensure that they are familiar with the relevant scheme requirements and be able to have at hand the relevant information. And this makes for a smoother and more efficient audit, and obviously more timely for yourselves. If we could move up to the next one, move on to the next one. And we have for the plastic sacks, again, ensuring that the quality management to comply, your supplier of plastic sacks must operate a quality control system, record the test results, and retain such records for a year. Within the plastic sack scheme, we also have relevant and very specific tests, of which the independent inspector will expect, i.e. drop tests, based around the plastic sacks compliance. We also have Paul Fleetwood from the Plastic Sacks Scheme, who is on hand as well at this webinar to cover off any questions you may have. And sorry, could we move up, please? Then when we come to the cotton mops, very similar. Again, complying with statutory duty under the Weights and Measures Act and under the Trade Descriptions Act. Manufacturing product to the relevant standard, and that is set within the CHSA cotton mops technical regs and manufacturing standard. Carrying out dimensional tests and record the results. Again, this is a requirement of any of your products who you are purchasing from a non-accredited CHSA manufacturer. These records must be available so that your compliance within your scheme and responsibilities can be audited by the independent inspector. Also within this, we do expect that your supplier of mops will carry out sufficient random yarn weight checks on finished items of product to be satisfied on conformity within the relevant standard. Also sufficient checks and in such a form that every order on consignment, no item varies significantly. And again, this is a piece that the independent inspector will be auditing during audits of mops and ensuring that you are aware of this and have the records available for him. And then when we move on to section F, which is the accreditation scheme for cleaning chemicals, this is a number of new areas of which were voted and agreed at the last Chemical Manufacturer Accredited Scheme AGM, of which again is to allow for verification and validation of products, whether they are from a accredited chemical manufacturer of the CHSA or a non-accredited chemical manufacturer. These areas of compliance must be adhered to, and the relevant information be available to the independent inspector, and also those of any end customers who are asking for any such information, and that applies across all our schemes. CHSA is very much driven and focused on the availability and transparency of evidencing any product claims or services that any of our members offer. So within the chemical scheme, probably the key one, if you are supplying any form of cleaning products, it's ensuring that it is a very heavily regulated sector. And within that, we do expect that the inspector will be able to see evidence of safety data sheets, compliance within the COSH regulations, labelling of products meet the UK and EU, as where applicable, of the classification of labelling and packaging. And also the key part here is that providing evidence of any biocidal claims within products must be evidenced with the appropriate test reports, of which can be a UCAS accredited test report or a form of a report which is licensed. The lab testing the product is licensed to undertake those biocidal tests, but it must clearly state a clear pass and the conditions, dirty or clean, within which that test has been awarded. And this is very important, that as a distributor, your chemical manufacturer supply partner is able to provide this for you. This is not just for the CHSA, but this is a legal requirement for any biocidal claims being made in the market. Equally, when it comes to cosmetics, and cosmetics is our hand washes, body lotions, etc., which are manufactured and available, again, you must have the labelling must be compliant under the appropriate UK and European regulations. You must also have a responsible person assigned to submit data on all cosmetics to the GB Cosmetic Product Notification Service or the EU Cosmetics Products Notification Panel. This is also the case that you must be able to report and evidence products that fall under the explosive precursors and also the National Poisons Centre. So there's a lot of information that is required when you are considering supplying chemical cleaning products within the UK or across the European market. So again, I would really stress to be aware of the CHSA manufacturer accreditation schemes and the relevant technical regulations. It is your responsibility as a distributor member to ensure that you are familiar with each of our accredited manufacturing schemes requirements, and that's the technical regulations and the manufacturing standards. And there are many of our CHSA manufacturers that are happy to help guide because it benefits all of us to ensure that there is full transparency and evidencing of claims being put into the market. Thank you. Kathy, you could go up to ethical. So a key piece, and this was voted across all the schemes, the accredited schemes at the November AGMs, was that manufacturers you purchase from are expected to be registered with CEDEX. And as a point, it was agreed that the CHSA would allow a reasonable time frame in order for manufacturers, whether they are CHSA accredited or non-accredited CHSA manufacturers, that we would require the first two pillars of CEDEX, which is the health and safety and the modern slavery pillars of the 4 pillars of CEDEX, that had to be attained by the end of this year. And what this means, there will be more information coming out about CEDEX in more detail. And this is very much, unfortunately, within the UK, there are still strong evidence of modern slavery happening within factories and manufacturing plants. Therefore, the CHSA, to maintain its credentials and its integrity within the market and to give confidence to all our end customers, it is important that we are aligned with the CEDEX the certification, which is a very robust certification and goes into the actual manufacturing process and safeguards those people working within those manufacturing industries. What this means basically is for a distributor is that your accredited manufacturer, if they are working towards it or will have it already, or a non-accredited manufacturer, we will ask for, and the independent inspector will ask during an audit whether the manufacturer has it. They will ask for a company reference number and the site reference number, or a copy of the CEDEX certificate or a link to the appropriate website page, of which this is very open and transparent, and it is available to any of our distributors or any end customers. They can go on and actually onto the CEDEX website and actually seek those details to see if a manufacturer is certified under CEDEX. If there is sufficient requirement for the CEDEX, we will be hosting with CEDEX a short Teams presentation just to give everybody an overview of what's involved. Obviously, any questions about CEDEX, anything particular, please refer them directly to myself after the webinar so that we can prepare with the CEDEX team just to give a good comprehensive overview of what CEDEX is, what it means, and what the value of CEDEX is within the industry. The last piece, and most important piece as well, is the use of the CHSA certification marks. We get a lot of questions about this, and it is important to make sure that that you are following the brand guidelines and that you're utilising the certification mark as much as possible, but also where it is appropriate. So within the accredited distributors, they may include the relevant manufacturing certification, depending on the product that you are applying that certification mark. So if it's a chemical manufacturing certification mark, you can apply it provided your supplier is one of our official accredited manufacturing members. Only members of the accreditation scheme for manufacture of plastic sacks may use the dumbbell certification mark as specified in the relevant technical regulations. So there are some small nuances that are very specific to the schemes. And again, we can help you with that and guide you, but also it is key that you speak to your manufacturing partner. Accredited CHSA manufacturing partner if you have any queries on the positioning and what you can or cannot use. Accredited distributors may not apply the distributor certification mark to any product or the box, pallet, or packaging. Accredited distributors may use the distributor certification mark and/or the CHSA member mark on literature, including price lists, catalogues, advertisements, invoices, delivery notes, and other promotional materials, such as the members' organisations' websites. And we do encourage you to utilise this use and positioning of your distributor certification mark, because again, it is a mark of integrity and confidence that what's on the box is in the box. The CHSA member mark may not be used, so that, and I reiterate, that is the CHSA member mark may not be used on any product, including the box, pallet, or packaging. And I think that concludes the checklist. But as I say, there is a lot of information there. I do thoroughly recommend that you download and actually read it in more detail. If there is anything, obviously, after this, please, again, speak to your your accredited manufacturer partner to ensure that you understand, or myself. So one section under the Chemical Manufacturer Accredited Scheme, we referenced a test report. So just so that you are aware of what a test report can look like, it is really important, because it is important to understand the difference between a efficacy profile and a test report. And this is very important because an efficacy report will only record the organism, test method, usage dilution, and test parameters. Only tests that pass are included. This is not a test report. So this is a product information sheet. So it does not give any indication that the product has passed those efficacy and EN tests. What is required is a form of a test report. Now, it can be a UCAS accredited test report, or a test report that is from a licensed lab who is licensed to undertake those specific microorganism tests and to be able to issue such a test report. So the word that the independent inspector will be looking for, and the information that you must have prior to an audit, is a form of a formal test report from a test lab. And this is very important because it will give the key words: pass, under dirty, clean conditions, etc. So this is a full account of the test. I do understand that this can be highly sensitive information. This is not information that is out in the public domain. However, it is an important piece of validating, and one for your end customer, that they should have the confidence that what you are claiming under a biocidal claim regarding a chemical product is actually fully validated. So it doesn't just comply to or tested to, but it actually passes. And this is very important. And this is a key piece of information that will form an integral part of the Chemical Manufacturers Accredited Scheme audits by our independent inspector, both with our manufacturers, our accredited manufacturers, and yourselves as distributors must have this information from your non-CHSA accredited chemical manufacturers to be able to validate the claims that you are placing on your website, labels, and generally in the marketplace. Next, please. So the inspector will audit compliance, and we obviously have David Luffman, who is our new inspector. So please welcome him to your premises. He has a lot of history and experience, I should say, within the industry. And obviously it is very important that we want audits to be as smooth as possible for your time efficiency, and therefore it is very good. It would be much appreciated if you could familiarize or appoint somebody who will familiarize themselves with all the relevant technical regulations and the manufacturing standards to cover the scope of products you are supplying into the market. I will reiterate that sanctions will be applied to members if not where there is non-compliance. However, we do have a process, so there is a timely process to allow you to be able to gather the information if for any reason you don't have it at the time of the audit. However, once the three strikes, and again, this is really important that you understand the process of non-compliance, or if there is a product of concern, there is a three-step process, and unfortunately in the third step, if it's still not been resolved, then unfortunately that can mean that your membership is at risk, or worst case scenario, there is an expulsion from the CHSA, of which obviously we don't want that. So thank you very much. I appreciate that was quite heavy on text, particularly the checklist. But the checklist of all our schemes and fact sheets. Kathy Connon, who is our PR for the CHSA, has done a wonderful job, as have our scheme members, putting together some very good, simple fact sheets. Please make sure that you're aware of them, download them from the website, and ensure the person that is responsible for facilitating, organising audits during the independent inspector's visit, that you're fully aware of what will be expected. So I will now hand over to our illustrious scheme member panel for any questions.
We've had one question in the Q&A, and if anyone wants to post their questions either into the chat or the Q&A, one that we still need to answer. Can the CHSA look at chemicals that are not from CHSA distributors? That's the question.
Sorry, Alex, do you want to answer that one, or I'm happy to answer that?
I'm happy for you too, Nikki. Okay.
So the CHSA, as we've reiterated and hopefully highlighted, as a distributor member, you can purchase your chemicals from any source, provided that those chemicals that if they must conform to our CHSA Chemical Manufacturer Accredited Scheme, both technical regulations and our manufacturing standard. Absolutely, we are not restricting sale, but they must conform. And again, that's why it's very important that you familiarise yourself with the individual scheme technical regs and standards so that you understand your obligations.
There's been a question, unfortunately, Alistair Scott, who was joining from the Cotton Mop scheme, is poorly, actually. He's got a pretty bad cold and he's tried to join but struggled to do so. But there is a question, and I'm just trying to find it again, about why are only cotton mop heads included in the scheme? I don't know if anyone's able to answer that. It's from Henry Stevenson. Henry, if I'll give you the chat, you've got your hand up, I'll activate your mic so you can pose your question yourself. Henry, okay, there's something in the Q&A, maybe it's there now. We'll go on to the next one. And Henry, if you could post your question in the Q&A if you've got something you'd like to ask. There's a question here. Is any efficacy test data provided to the inspector kept in confidentiality and only viewed by the inspector? Would an NDA be signed should a manufacturer request this?
Yeah, absolutely. Total confidentiality of any such sensitive information is absolutely, it is only viewed by the inspector. It is held on file, but purely in a confidential file, which only the inspector has access to. And if you feel that an NDA is required, absolutely, I don't see any issues with an NDA between yourself and the inspector. The key is ensuring that the efficacy data is valid and is appropriate for the products that are being audited at that time.
Okay.
Alex, do you want to add anything to that?
I think you've covered it well. That's fine.
The one about cotton mops is, why is it only cotton mop heads that are included in the CHSA regulations? I guess that's not something.
What we can do, Henry, is we will pose that to our to Alistair and to the scheme members, the MOP scheme members, and we will come back to you.
Okay. There are no more questions at the moment in either the Q&A or in the chat. If anyone's got any questions, I guess now would be a perfect time to submit them.
Lorcan has got there's a hand up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just really to explore the use of an independent third party technical expertise lab when information is transferred to the inspector of a technical nature in the chemical arena. If you want to explain what the process thereon is, Nikki, how we would deal with technical queries. Thanks.
Yeah. No problem. That's a good point, Lorcan. Yes, so where obviously our independent inspector is not a microbiologist or a chemist, so if there was any area, and to avoid any conflict, we would refer, if there was a product of concern and some, shall we say, concerns with regarding the validation of the test reporting on the efficacy of that product, we would then refer to a nominated third-party UCAS accredited test lab, which is MSL, of which we pay for that service. It is completely unbiased. They would undertake a test to validate both that product and the test report, and that information would then be referred back to the independent inspector, and hopefully there would be a timely conclusion and a sort of completion of that test report. Or if it was to highlight any vagaries, then again that would be reported back between the independent inspector and the member.
There's another clarification of a question. We are aware of a competitor, non-CHSA, selling plant-based chemicals, making lots of claims which seem hard to believe. Can the CHSA look at these products, or would it be down to the member to do their own checks?
Alex, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, I can do. I think it'd be difficult for the CHSA to actively get involved with looking at products from outside of CHSA members, but it can definitely help in terms of giving you the right questions to ask and pointing in the right direction of looking for the evidence.
Yeah. I think it is also covered, just to further expand on Alex's point, I think it's important that we have a very comprehensive technical regulation and chemical manufacturer accreditation checklist now. So therefore, it is covered by the current regulations in the market. There's nothing new in there. There's nothing that is only bespoke to the CHSA. It is a very heavily regulated industry. So again, a legal requirement and is to make sure that you can validate and substantiate. And this is also covered under the CMA's Green Claims Code as well, and obviously under our ethical marketing. So if you are a distributor member, then you do have a responsibility to question and challenge. And there are the relevant government bodies, the Health and Safety Executive, and there is also the Advertising Standards Authority. The CHSA would not be in a position to take on individual cases. And we feel that it would be it's more appropriate for yourselves, given the regulations already within the industry.
Okay, there's another question. As a distributor of cleaning products, is it enough requesting tests from just a few suppliers instead of all suppliers to demonstrate compliance?
Alex?
I guess that depends on the suppliers, really, because the whole idea is if you're buying from accredited manufacturers, then that verification is being done by the independent inspector, whereas any that are outside of it, I'd be asking questions of them all, to, even if it's just spot checking some of them to make sure they can evidence the claims that they're making, because otherwise, who's asking those questions?
Just as well, to give everybody an insight, when the independent inspector is preparing for an audit, regardless of the scheme, he will request a list of which is an anonymized list from your range, of which, depending whether your product falls within the scope of our accredited manufacturing schemes, and any other products that he feels that may require to be verified. That is then agreed with the member prior to the audit, so that they can obviously prepare any documentation. But it is important that as any member, any claims that we are making out there in the market, that we must make sure that we can evidence, and that's not just for an audit, but it's for any of our end customers. We must be able to prove and validate whether it's a service or a product claim. It is very important to be transparent. And as I say, it falls under the ethical marketing scope of a member, and also the Green Claims Code.
Okay, there are no more questions at the moment. If anyone has any, I was just going to say, if anyone's got any questions, pop them in the chat or the Q&A now. But none.
Okay. Well, I think we have recorded this, so we will be releasing the recording for anybody, so that you can listen again to my dulcet tones. But if there's anything that does flag afterwards, please, as I say, please just email me, schemechair@chsa.co.uk, or again, speak to, and I do firmly encourage you to speak with your fellow CHSA accredited manufacturers, so that you understand their schemes. They're there to help you. We're all there to make sure that our industry integrity is upheld. The CHSA mark, our certification mark, means total confidence to our end users. At all times, that they understand what they are, what's in the box, what's on the box is in the box, and that is really important. That is our foundation, and it is one that we uphold 100% within our technical regulations and our manufacturing standards. Whilst obviously the industry is changing rapidly, and we need to support all our members. We are doing so with ongoing fact sheets, webinars like these. And please, again, if there is anything that you would like the CHSA or within the schemes, please refer how we can improve and increase the value that the CHSA give you as members. Please, obviously, myself or our chair, Lorcan, would love to hear from you. But I would like to say thank you very much to the representatives from the schemes. That's Joe, Paul, Alex, and unfortunately poor Alistair, who couldn't join us. But thank you very much for your time, and really appreciate your engagement. Thank you very much.